Chapter 18 of Glinda of Oz. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Evelyn Clark. Glinda of Oz by L. Frank Baum. Chapter 18. The Cleverness of Erivc. We must now return to Erivc the Skeezer, who, when he had set down the copper kettle containing the 3 fish at the gate of the lonely cottage, had asked, "What next?" The goldfish stuck its head above the water in the kettle and said in its small but distinct voice, "You are to lift the latch, open the door, and walk boldly into the cottage. Do not be afraid of anything you see, for however you seem to be threatened with dangers, nothing can harm you. The cottage is the home of a powerful yokuho named Erivc the Red, who assumes all sorts of forms, sometimes changing her form several times a day, according to her fancy. What her real form may be, we do not know. This strange creature cannot be bribed with treasure or coaxed through friendship or won by pity. She has never assisted anyone or done anything wrong to anyone that we know of. All her wonderful powers are used for her own selfish amusement. She will order you out of the house, but you must refuse to go. Remain and watch Erivc closely and try to see what she uses to accomplish her transformations. If you can discover the secret, whisper it to us, and we will then tell you what to do next." "That sounds easy," returned Erivc, who had listened carefully. "But are you sure she will not hurt me or try to transform me?" "She may change your form," replied the goldfish. "But do not worry if that happens, for we can break the enchantment easily. You may be sure that nothing will harm you, so you must not be frightened at anything you see or hear." Now, Erivc was as brave as any ordinary young man, and he knew the fish who spoke to him were truthful and to be relied upon. Nevertheless, he experienced a strange sinking of the heart as he picked up the kettle and approached the door of the cottage. His hand trembled as he raised the latch, but he was resolved to obey his instructions. He pushed the door open, took 3 strides into the middle of the one room the cottage contained, and then stood still and looked around him. The sights that met his gaze were enough to frighten anyone who had not been properly warned. On the floor, just before Erivc, lay a great crocodile, its red eyes gleaming wickedly and its wide mouth displaying rows of sharp teeth. Horned toads hopped about. Each of the 4 upper corners of the room was festooned with a thick cobweb, in the center of which sat a spider as big around as a wash basin and armed with pincher-like claws. A red and green lizard was stretched at full length on the windowsill, and black rats darted in and out of the holes they had gnawed in the floor of the cottage. But the most startling thing was a huge gray ape which sat upon a bench and knitted. It wore a lace cap, such as old ladies wear, and a little apron of lace, but no other clothing. Its eyes were bright and looked as if coals were burning in them. The ape moved as naturally as an ordinary person might, and on Erivc's entrance stopped knitting and raised its head to look at him. "Get out!" cried a sharp voice, seeming to come from the ape's mouth. Erivc saw another bench, empty, just beyond him, so he stepped over the crocodile, sat down on the bench, and carefully placed the kettle beside him. "Get out!" again cried the voice. Erivc shook his head. "No," he said, "I'm going to stay." The spiders left their four corners, dropped to the floor, and made a rush towards the young skeezer, circling around his legs with their pincers extended. Erivc paid no attention to them. An enormous black rat ran up Erivc's body, passed around his shoulders, and uttered piercing squeals in his ears, but he did not wince. The green and red lizard, coming from the windowsill, approached Erivc and began spitting a flaming fluid at him, but Erivc merely stared at the creature, and its flame did not touch him. The crocodile raised its tail and, swinging around, swept Erivc off the bench with a powerful blow. But the skeezer managed to save the kettle from upsetting, and he got up, shook off the horned toads that were crawling over him, and resumed his seat on the bench. All the creatures, after this first attack, remained motionless, as if awaiting orders. The old gray ape knitted on, not looking toward Erivc now, and the young skeezer stolidly kept his seat. He expected something else to happen, but nothing did. A full hour passed, and Erivc was growing nervous. "What do you want?" the ape asked at last. "Nothing," said Erivc. "You may have that," retorted the ape, and at this all the strange creatures in the room broke into a chorus of chuckling laughter. Another long wait. "Do you know who I am?" questioned the ape. "You must be Riera the Red, the Yoku," Erivc answered. "Knowing so much, you must also know that I do not like strangers. Your presence here in my home annoys me. Do you not fear my anger?" "No," said the young man. "Do you intend to obey me and leave this house?" "No," replied Erivc, just as quietly as the Yoku had spoken. The ape knitted for a long time before resuming the conversation. "Curiosity," it said, "has led to many a man's undoing. I suppose in some way you may have learned that I do tricks of magic, and so through curiosity you have come here. You may have been told that I do not injure anyone, so you are bold enough to disobey my commands to go away. You imagine that you may witness some of the rites of witchcraft, and that they may amuse you. Have I spoken truly?" "Well," remarked Erivc, who had been